Hi, everybody, and welcome to our session, Silo Smashing. I'm Quirk's editor, Joe Ridholm. Thanks for joining us today. Just a quick housekeeping note that we won't have a formal Q&A after the session, but our speaker will be in the chat during the session, so feel free to submit your questions and comments using the chat tab during the presentation. Our session today is presented by NPR. Enjoy!
Hi, everyone. My name is Gwynne Villota, and I'm part of the Audience Insights team at NPR headquarters. And I'm here today to talk about silo smashing. So how the NPR Audience Insights team works within and across the organization to help NPR stay audience focused. So what does that mean? Over the next few minutes, I will talk about how we are structured, how we communicate, the tools that we use, what this looks like in practice, and also where we need to still improve, because we are definitely not perfect at this. Let's start with how our team is organized. We are a small but mighty team. There are 15 of us, spanning 12 locations. So suffice it to say, we are remote. And so we have to work that much harder to make sure that everybody knows what they need to know and is up to speed. We are structured, probably like many of you, by consumption platform and also by client. I am part of the content research team, and we do research on new and existing shows, sometimes on products, and I also spend a lot of time on broadcast data. We also have a revenue-related research team that focuses on our corporate underwriting and development and marketing teams, and then finally a digital analytics team that is basically half of the overall insights team that works with any and all first-party data. And I expect also, like many of you, our data are really isolated and siloed by consumption platform. And we also rely on a lot of different third parties to supplement what we can't get in the analytics. And across all of those different tools, often what is measured is defined differently. What counts as an occasion or a play or a user varies by the amount of time they spend on the platform. And aside from the measurement differences, the tools to access all of them are unique and bespoke, and very few data sets speak to any other data sets. So especially on the digital side, the technical skills might be similar, but application on web data versus app data versus donor data, for instance, might be very, very different. We serve clients across the organization. So, of course, as a media company, our biggest division is content, and I work very closely with them. But as I said, while we sit within the marketing division, they're a client, and some of these others we've already talked about. But then there's also a long list of other divisions, like member partnerships, who maintains all of our station relationships. There are lots of different, we really work with clients across the whole organization. Additionally, there are satellite analysts with dotted lines into content and into also our development team. And it's also the case that our clients don't always have one single point of contact within audience research. So in other words, if I'm working on the Up First podcast, I would talk to some people on the Audience Insights team about analytics, and I would talk to me or someone on my team about audience attitudes or other lifestyle behaviors. So this leaves us all feeling a little like this a lot of the time. And we are constantly thinking about what we're doing and with whom and for what reason. And so let's move now into communication. So I would say the biggest thing that we do to ease communication is having recurring meetings. We have so many different recurring meetings at so many different levels. Within, as a team meeting, one-on-ones with direct reports or managers, staff that are working on the same project or with the same client have dedicated recurring meetings. They're dedicated cross-trading recurring meetings between teams. We have recurring meetings with stakeholders. You get the idea. Like we put time on the calendar at some sort of cadence. It might be daily or weekly or quarterly. And we don't, of course, keep them all, but it's much, much, much easier to cancel those meetings than to try to navigate the complexity of everyone's schedule when you need to talk to someone tomorrow. So we try to plan ahead. And I think we all try really hard to not let the end of the meeting be the end of the information sharing. I know that I take my meeting notes and I copy some into my agenda with my boss. I put others in agenda notes for my one-on-ones, and just constantly thinking about how the information needs to go back and forth, up and down, and side to side. We also recognize that people take in information in a lot of different formats and in different cadences and on different occasions. And so we try to make our information available, even the same information, in lots of different ways. So we have a weekly email where we highlight some snippet or tidbit of information that we've recently learned or shared with a client team. We have a Slack channel that anybody can join to hear similar kinds of information. Sometimes we post to industry studies or other things, but there's less limitation on that compared to a weekly email. We have a monthly meeting that has been on 2 o'clock on the third Tuesday for the last 12 plus years. We got about 100 people at this meeting. The topic rotates, obviously, but it's just a different format for people to take in the kinds of things the kinds of findings we're surfacing about our audience. We have an intranet page where more recurring deliverables can live. And we also have what we call an analytics speed dial that's a one-stop shop for all of our dashboards. And a lot of information goes back and forth, is cross-posted in these different places, or gets a deep dive in a monthly meeting and a really short Slack message summary, but just trying to hit all of our stakeholders wherever they might be based on and considering the amount of time they have available. For our meetings, there are a few things that we try to do to sort of have healthy meeting habits. Our meeting invites, especially the standing ones, have a linked agenda in that invite where we can add our notes, we can prep for the meeting. There's standing agenda items that we just copy down each time and then start filling things in. We get nudges in Slack to remind people to check the agenda or other things like that. We have also made sure that our expectations for things like remote work and availability are pinned in those agenda documents so that everybody can find them and no one is surprised, especially new hires. We also implemented something called Documentation Day, which is a day 3 or 4 times a year where we cancel all our meetings and we spend the day heads down, cleaning things up, making sure that codes are updated or methodology for pulling a particular run of data is all, documented and up to date. It's a chore. All of this is a chore, but like other chores, it feels good when it's done and everything is tidy and organized and everybody can find what they're looking for and not have to ask somebody where the notes for the meeting were or what we talked about. So finally, or sorry, not finally, but next, what are some of the tools that we use? We are a pretty low-fi organization in terms of the tools we use. We rely heavily on digital tools because of all the time zones and the different work schedules. And we try hard to make that information location agnostic. We have a bias for simplicity. We do a ton in group Google Docs, including editorial planning, even in the content division. Some of our meeting agendas have gotten so long over time that they crash and we have to restart our computers and start building new documents. We have experimented with more bespoke or dedicated tools, like agendas in Lattice or dedicated notes apps, but ultimately we found it's just easier to be in the tools that everybody is already using. And for us, that's in a lot of cases, Google. We have also implemented a request form. So this is available to anyone, any internal NPR employee. And you can probably see some of the sort of basic questions here. And, you know, it's not that we never have conversations with stakeholders, but if somebody is just trying to fill out a grant application or an awards nomination, this is an easy place to go to document all of those requests. They are fed into a dedicated Slack, a dedicated private Slack channel, and then whoever is best positioned to answer that question it claims it by emoji. And then also links to the documentation when the request is done, so that if we get similar requests, we can just go back and see exactly how we handled it the previous time. So maybe this sounds good. Maybe some of this sounds helpful. What's it like in practice? It's not always so clean. It means we're definitely sort of always on and keeping our eyes and ears open to all of the various places that people can find us or interact with us. And projects start a lot of different ways. Sometimes it starts with a show executive producer who checks a dashboard and says, huh, my show grew a lot last week. Can you help me understand why? And other times we take a look back at what we've worked on and says, it looks like we haven't checked in with your audience in a while, and we should do that. And along the way, we need to be mindful of all of the various stakeholders and their respective priority. And what I mean by that is that sometimes something that one team wants is not the best thing for a different team. And we spend a lot of time kind of navigating that intermediate space between stakeholders. So how do we approach the actual question that the stakeholder is asking? We try to kind of walk through this process, especially with our analysts. So starting, of course, with what is the real question that the stakeholder is asking? Is there a question behind the question? That could be in the form or the other intake process, but it almost always involves a conversation or at least a message or two to make sure that our understanding and their understanding are the same thing. Very early on, we want to understand what decision this data will inform. If it is just curiosity, then it takes a much lower position on our priority list. We want to make sure that it aligns with our business strategy and yes, our business strategy. We want to understand who the key stakeholders are, and not just who they are, but whatever we know about them. How do they take in information? What's their communication style? What are their goals? What's our existing relationship with this person? And is this an opportunity to strengthen that relationship? Or do we need to do, what do we know from our past work with them that could help? Are there other stakeholders in the mix? And then what existing internal or external research is relevant? We have lots of third-party data providers. How close can we get to answering this question without doing any new or original research? Sometimes not very far, but sometimes we get a good start. And then lastly, how much effort should we invest in this? If the question is just about curiosity and it is a low priority show or stakeholder for some reason, then we're not going to spend nearly as much time on it as if it's, uh, if it's the CEO or something about a show like Morning Edition or All Things Considered. I would say also that several team values are critical to making this work. A lot of what I talked about is tools and process, but at the end of the day, we are people. And I think we are really lucky that as a nonprofit, we tend to work with a lot of colleagues who are really mission oriented and committed to NPR as a nonprofit. And there's just a lot of dedication there. There's also a lot of mutual respect. We have a lot of confidence in one another and the analytic prowess of our colleagues. And so we that comes through in how we interact and work with each other. And there's also a spirit of generosity that people are going to do their best work. And we take trust and confidence in all of that. We also have some practices that facilitate working across teams. I talked a little bit about how we take the time to make time. We put a lot into our relationships. We tend to err towards transparency and making sure people can, we show our work and make everything available. We favor simplicity over sort of prettier, complex solutions. We take the time to build relationships because we know in the long run that will pay off. But we also know it's not perfect and we still have a lot of work to do. We find it really, we always struggle with getting our research schedules in sync, especially within the primary and analytic side. Even though we might be working on the same with the same client team, the pace of the research is different, the depth of the research is different, and it just continues to be a challenge. We also spend, as I said, a lot of time aligning stakeholders, and that is also a very time-consuming process. And there are a lot of disconnects between our primary and analytic data, and we spend a lot of time thinking through those and how to make sense of it all. And finally, we need to increase our roadmap transparency. We have a pretty good sense of our research priorities for the year, but there's not right now a great way for our stakeholders to see all of that. And we want to make that available so that they understand all the work that we're doing. So now I would invite you in the chat to talk about what other practices your team has that help you guys work efficiently and get your insights to the teams that need them, the stakeholders that need them. I will be watching the chat, so I'll chime in too, but I'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much.